Where did this? There we go. All right, just for introduction, Michael, we're a small club. I've got about 15 paid members right now, and there's a lot more that just pop in here and there. We started a year ago in July. We're not even we're not really even through our first membership here yet. I think we're doing pretty good. We're a 501c3 group. We've incorporated and all that. And yeah, I came from another club that had all that, and it was just time for me to part ways with them. So a year ago I did that, and had to have somewhere to land. So I thought, why not build a club? So that's why we did this. I do have several hands here that I don't know if you can see or not on screen. Yeah, I guess you can see most.
I can put cameraman. You can flip around, his wave.
You know what? The reason he's the cameraman is because he doesn't want to be seen on.
Yeah, I think I see about half the room there.
Yeah.
But, anyway, that's a story about us. Why don't you tell us about you?
All right. Excuse me. Well, good evening, and thanks for inviting me to your meeting tonight. My name is Michael Martins. Call signs KB9VBR. Been licensed since 1999. So it's 25 years this year, which I find to be totally amazing. It was so amazing that it, that I had to actually join the Quarter Century Wireless Association. So I guess that's the kind of the longevity I'm looking at. Been active pretty much that entire time with my club, and also for a long stint in our local Aries Races group. So I get a vast kind of interest in all these different aspects of amateur radio, and there's a lot of stuff I've done, and there's even more that I probably haven't done at this point. But if you name it, I probably looked at it at one point or another over the last 25 years. Most recently, I guess a lot of people know me because of my YouTube channel, and that's great. I've been putting out videos about once a week for almost 8, 9 years now, a real long time, and get a fair amount of traction with that. My interests really right now tend to focus mostly on portable operations. I've been, it's just an early adopter of the Parks on the Air program, and I've gotten involved with that, and I really enjoy going out into the field doing that. The fox hunting, what we're going to talk about tonight's been something that I like doing ever since way back in the day. We had to track down some malicious interference on the repeater. So I got a kind of trial by fire years ago with that. And I'm just kind of the last couple of years been dipping my toe more and more into contesting. And not so much. I'm never going to be a big gun contester. I just don't have the space for the antennas and things like that. But I love QSO parties. I love some of these specialty contests, like the 10-meter contest in the wintertime, or just these other smaller type of focused kind of activities where it's not overwhelming like sweepstakes or something like that, but it can be a lot of fun when you get involved with it. So that's just been sort of my new big interest. Um, so that's probably it about me, unless you want to know more about personal life. Live here. I'm located here in Wausau, Wisconsin, northwest part of the state, or excuse me, north central part of the state. I've been self-employed for the last 14 years. I've done digital marketing, online websites, things like that, and now it's mostly amateur radio related things that's been keeping me busy all these years. That, and I'm also council person for our the local city of Wausau government. So it's just another avenue that I really enjoy. So enough of me boring you, I guess. uh, what do you want me to go right into the presentation or the questions or whatnot?
I got
So
one question first.
yeah. Mhm.
You a Packers fan?
does
You
does the
thought you're
Pope
talking to somebody in
yeah
Browns country out here.
does the Pope wear a funny hat? Of course. It's funny. I've been to Lambeau Field about a dozen times for Packer games, and I've never seen an entire a game at all. Because back when my kids were young in Scouts, we got hooked up with this group that was working the concession stand, and I'd be in one of these concession stands in the stadium, and you'd hear the roars and the cheers for the whole game, and all I'd do is I'd be standing behind a beer tap serving beer all night long. But yeah, still a fun time just to have that experience.
Well, there's at least one Eagle Scout in the room here.
All right, good deal. So I was never in Boy Scouts, well, as a child, but professionally, I worked as a district executive for about 3 years. So it was a really fun experience, and I'm glad it's something I did in my varied career.
Cool.
We had, we are just starting the ideas of fox hunting.
Okay.
We built, back in May, we had an assembly project. We built tape measure beams,
Mm-hmm.
3 tape measure beams. I figured that would be a good start. Then field day happened, and then everything and its brother happened. And here we are at the 1st of August, and it's time to start getting some other stuff planned. I'm hoping I'd like to see us do an actual fox hunt sometime in mid-September.
Mm-hmm.
But what I've done fox hunting myself before. Got the actual Doppler and all that, but these guys really don't know. I don't think that much about them. So if any information you can give them.
All right. And I don't have a real long presentation. I deliberately kept things kind of short and succinct because I knew there would be a lot of questions, and we could probably move on that. But I'm just going to see if I can make my screen share here. And all right. Okay. And I guess, do you see my presentation?
Yes, we
Yeah.
got you.
Okay, good deal. That's great. Um, I did something. I did something right. So, uh,
Hey, we're all
uh,
amateurs.
I'm not yet. It's funny because I'm not a. I'm as much as I do online content and things like that. I'm not a real big one of these Zoom presenter kind of people. So it's I'm glad things are working. But I got a short presentation I kind of put together. Ready, set, fox hunt, and we've since you've made it through the first step. You've got your antenna. And you're just at that point where you're ready to go. So see if I can get to the next. Why am I not advancing my slides? Let's see. Okay, there we go. I got it figured out now. All right. Why fox hunting? Well, fox hunting, it's a lot of things, but it's a fast-paced and exciting activity. If you want to get outside and explore, um, it can be it can be pretty fast paced, especially if you've got groups or individuals competing against each other. So it's there's you got that kind of skill, you got that excitement. Who's going to find the fox first? Who's going to do it in the least amount of steps, the least amount of miles driven, or things like that. Uh, it's a cross-discipline skill. It's one of those things where you learn a lot of aspects of radio technology. Like you said, you built the Yagi antennas. You learn about things like attenuation, how signals sort of travel, especially VHF, UHF signals. You learn about uh, maps, reading a map and a compass, orienteering, taking bearings, headings, and things like that. So there's a lot of different things that are radio and not radio related that really it just sort of kind of build into that cohesive aspect. And also, I think most importantly, it promotes amateur radio. And it's one of those things where you don't have to be a ham, you don't have to have your license in order to enjoy the fun of fox hunting. It's you can hand a a 12-year-old kid a a handheld receiver, just lock the transmit out and say go to it, and it's 2 minutes of instruction and they'll find. I can almost guarantee they'll find the fox. So we've done that with kids, with scouting groups, and all the time, and it's a lot of fun, and you can do it. Maybe if you're doing it in a public place, that could spur some interest. Micro foxes in a park, that might be something to get somebody's. They'll say, well, what are you doing? You can kind of explain to them and show them the concept and all that, and before you know it, you've got people wanting to go the next step into amateur radio. So it can be one of those real visible type of activities that's non-threatening, that's very approachable for people that don't have a radio background, that can maybe get their first taste into what amateur radio is. So um, equipment wise, you're halfway there. You've got the antenna. The Yagi antenna is probably one of the more important parts of fox hunting. We like the Yagi styles because, especially that tape measure beam has that great front to back ratio. It's got a big null to the back side, so it makes it real easy to um, not only find which direction the signal is coming from, but when you point the antenna away, you can hear the null. So it just sort of strengthens you know, your confidence in the signal is in the direction that it is. So with that null there, you'll need a handheld transceiver. Uh, Preferably, you're gonna want a dual band transceiver, something with VHF and UHF frequencies, and we'll talk about why UHF is going to be important when you're fox hunting in a little bit. And it needs a nice S meter scale in it. If it's got that nice, the meter's got a good amount of deviation from S1 to S9, it's going to be all the easier to sort of ascertain what your signal strength is, and that's how you can kind of find your direction when you're searching for the foxes. You'll need an attenuator. If you look on that picture there, my attenuator is kind of taped to the antenna there. It's a homebrew job. I think I got one on my desk here. This is a commercial one that MFJ made. Unfortunately, they're not in business anymore. If you see these at ham fests, pick them up. That's what I've always done is if I see an attenuator on a table, I might snap it up. But basically what's in this box is a series of resistors and little switches that you can engage and disengage the resistor. And the more resistors you put in line, your greater attenuation from 1 dB. There's 1 dB, 2, 3, 10, and 20 dB steps. So I think if you've got all these resistors engaged, you'll get up to about 80 or 100, about 80 dB of attenuation. And that really knocks the signal down when you get close in to the source, and that's basically that's what's necessary in order to really find the fox. And then my secret ingredient, what I really like to use when I'm searching, especially if it's in a larger area, is the good old fashioned map and compass. And the compasses are like those the silver compasses that have the rotating bezel on them, so that you can take your heading, you match, you rotate the bezel, so you line the indicator up, um, or the marker up with north, and then you can transfer that to your map and draw out a heading on the map. And I find doing that, if you're able to, if the fox is hidden somewhere in a larger area, like a city or something like that, or a neighborhood, doing that really kind of lets you hone into where it's located. If you're in a park, then it's, and you're using the smaller microfox, it's a little more challenging. The map may not be as useful to you in that regards.
I'll
All
tell
right.
you what,
Yeah.
as far as the parks,
Hmm.
I've hunted through the Cuyahoga Valley before, and that is the hardest place because you've got stuff that's bouncing off all the walls,
Yep.
and it's really hard to get a heading.
We
We have,
had, yeah, no, exactly. We've got a similar, not as sharply defined as you, but I live in a river valley too, where we've got the bluffs up about 200-300 feet above everybody else. So there's you do get a lot of, depending on where the fox is located, its power level, you can end up with a lot of multipath. Um, we had one guy that got really ingenious. He decided to put the fox transmitter antenna on a Yagi itself, and he had it aimed at a water tower, so it would
yeah, I've heard of it before.
it would bounce off that tower and just kind of spread everywhere, and it got aggravating to the point where I thought I was in the area, because I would just go I would just swivel my antenna all the way around in a big circle, and it was the exact same signal strength everywhere I was. which was yeah, it can, yeah, that's like a master skill level kind of thing, though, to do things like that. It's two really main types of foxes that we talk about, the commercially designed ones. The micro fox, and this transmitter is probably a little bit bigger than say a pack of chewing gum. It's got an antenna on, just a short little whip antenna on the top. It runs off of a 9-volt battery, 15 milliamps of transmit power, so a very weak fox. These are the kind of things that you can find in, if you were going to wanted to do a fox hunt in, say, like a park or something like that. You could hide multiple ones on different frequencies. You could hide them. You could set them on the same frequency, but have different times in which they beacon out, or things like that, to really confuse people. That can be a lot of fun, for just a small area kind of fox. And then your larger traditional fox boxes. I think a lot of people have seen these, typically built out of a ammo can or something like that. Got a duck antenna on the top. Bionics, BYINOCICS or something like that. They make a little Fox controller kit that you can hotwire to anything with a microphone, like a speaker mic jack or something like that. So you could take a cheap Baofeng, or an old HT, and put this controller on it, and then presto, you've got yourself a 5-watt Fox transmitter that can be stuck just about anywhere. Um, one if you're going to go the Foxbox route, make sure it's well marked so that it doesn't look like anything nefarious. Stickers, labels, addresses, things like that. It's always helpful so that somebody uninitiated doesn't stumble onto it and thinks it's the worst. So if you know what I mean. So, all right,
Yeah,
moving on. Yes,
we had to
yeah, go.
bounce that out just yesterday at a major interchange in the area, and it ended up being just a barrel.
It was
Oh,
burning clothing.
oh,
That's what
yeah.
down 76. Oh my word.
Yeah, the thing closed down for like 3 hours.
Holy smokes. Yeah. If you're in a urban area, if you know somebody that's in the public safety realm, it might be good to kind of give them a couple phone calls to let them know what you're doing. So, so you don't run into one of those bomb squad um, situations. Okay. And I always say, fox hunting really, it's a combination of skill and detective work. The skill is using your equipment, honing in on that signal, searching and things like and those technical parts of it. But the detective work is also thinking about the area, the terrain. Well, could a signal be doing? Could the area, the landmass, to be doing something to the signal to throw me off? Um, how does the signal sound? Is it weak? Is it strong? Does it warble? Things like that. Those could give you clues on, well, maybe how you perceive that signal to be, how it's how that fox might be hidden. Does it sound like it's coming from two places? That might be an indicator that there could be some kind of multipath or directionality that could be throwing you off. So, and those under kind of understanding those clues will sort of guide you in on where the fox could be. So, all right. So step one, basically, to find the fox, you really got to know the scope of the hunt. Are you in a city? Are we in a neighborhood? Or are we a small park? Just going to kind of talk about. I'm going to talk a little bit more about a sort of a large neighborhood kind of fox hunt that tends to be very typical. And a lot of when we start a fox hunt, you know, we try to tell people that you're going to be able to hear you should be able to hear the fox within a certain area, within say the city limits or something like that. We'll tell everybody that, well, the fox will be located on public property. That So you kind of that and we might have a starting point where we know that everybody is going to be able to hear the fox. So that you've got that ground point where or that starting point where everybody should be able to get that first good signal when the fox is activated, and then kind of move in from there. So step one is to really get that first heading. Um, when the fox goes off, what you'll hear is a series of tones, and it'll last for about 15 seconds, and then it'll give its call sign in Morse code at the end, and it does that about once every minute or so. So you wait for it to give the tones, and then you go into action. You're going to start swinging the beam back and forth, watching your S meter on your handheld for that deflection, where it's strongest and where it's weakest. And it might take one or two, um, especially if you're just starting out, one or two of those cycles to kind of really get the feeling of where it's located. Um, Once I kind of get that direction, what I do is I'll set my antenna down in that direction, and then I'll use my compass get a heading, and I'll mark it on my map, and that's going to help me. Um, Once I got that line, that bearing line through on the map, I know that if I move to another location, say off, maybe a half a mile or a quarter mile one way or the other, a few blocks one way or the other, I should be able to take another heading, and if I've done my job properly, the two should intersect at some point or the other and guide me in. So I'll move to a new location. I'll take a second reading. Um, Try to on the map, try to get about a 15 or a 20-degree difference between the two readings, because if I can get enough of a a difference between the two, um, that I get a good cross, I've got a higher confidence level of where that fox could possibly be located. And then that's where the detective work comes in. So I've taken a few readings. I've got lines that are kind of drawing me into a particular direction in the city, in the neighborhood, and then I'm going to start to think to myself, well, where are there public lands that I should kind of look into and start sniffing around. Are there parks? Are there
Restaurants.
um, ball diamonds? Things that. Yeah. Is there a question?
I said restaurants.
Restaurants? Yeah, it could be a restaurant too. Um, are there places that where where it's easily accessible and it's open open to the public, so it's absolutely. And then start working around those neighborhoods. Once you get to a spot where the signal is quite strong, yeah, you're going to be, that's when you kind of get off on your feet and you start using your tools like your attenuator here, because um, if you're in an area where you swing your beam around and you're getting a full strength signal, um, you're going to have a really hard time picking out a direction at that point. So then you start adding that attenuation, and we'll talk a little bit about attenuation. So um, there's different ways in which you can attenuate the signal. Um, the easiest would be what's called body fading. If you take your handheld radio and you hold it as close as you can um, to your chest, when you start moving your body around swivel your body around, you should hear the signal get weaker and stronger, and then that means the null is behind you. You can start walking, or the null is in front of you. You can start walking behind you into the direction of the fox. That's it works to a certain degree. If the fox is overpowering, it's not gonna it's not going to be a very effective method. Disconnecting your antenna is another way to attenuate your signal. You don't get the directivity of um, the Yagi antenna, but disconnecting it will drop that signal down, and you can still kind of, with the body fade method, still kind of find that null. You can switch. You can use the switch style attenuators. That's what I was talking with here. This one. Adding more and more attenuation on the signal in order to get, knock that signal down, so you can actually, as you swivel the antenna, you can see that deflection. There's a method that a lot of the, when you're competing in radio sport events, that is really I guess I'll call it the professional level fox hunting. When you're competing on a level, and they'll use active or offset attenuators. Um, it's a little board with a bit of circuitry that switching the when you turn a dial on the offset attenuator, it's actually moving the signal, the frequency, to a point off the fundamental frequency so you can get away from some of that frequency overload and you're kind of listening to an image frequency. And they're very it's a little takes a little bit higher skill in order to use them, but it's a very effective type of attenuation. And then finally, what I find very effective is switching to the third harmonic. And the third harmonic is if you triple your fundamental frequency. So say you're searching for a fox on 146.52 megahertz. At 439.56 is your third harmonic, and it will you'll hear at a greatly reduced level the signal. So, all right. Any questions on attenuators?
Anybody?
Okay. All right. And I'm going to talk about the third harmonic in a second. And really that's as we get close, okay, as we get closer to the fox, we turn our attenuation up. You can kind of see the fox there, hidden in the brush. The green boxes make a little bit difficult to find sometimes. Sometimes I might have it hidden under a log or something like that. Sometimes you have to do your detective work and scour around an area until you kind of find it if the person has done a good job sort of hiding the fox. Now I mentioned the third harmonic, and basically if you look at this image here, you'll see on my handheld, it's my dual band handheld, and this is the reason why we're going to want a dual band transceiver so we can pick up a UHF frequency. The nice thing about my Yaesu here is it's got two VFOs, so I can listen to the fundamental frequency, which is 147.47 megahertz, and you can see that it's practically at full scale, but on VFO-B at 442.410, the third harmonic, that because of the you're so far off of the fundamental, you're listening to that image frequency. It's it's way down there weak, maybe like S1, S3. Really convenient way in which to attenuate the signal without having to use the devices like the switches and things like that. And it can come in, when you're in that at the point of doing that close-in work, that's really the key to finding the fox, is to switch to that harmonic frequency and listen to it. And we had a micro fox hunt that was basically like that. The fox was so well hidden that everybody had sort of converged onto a spot, and I think everybody knew that the fox was within this about 50-foot circle, but nobody could find it until you start almost practically turning over rocks and looking in all these little crevices, and I see in the shadows just the tip of a duck antenna kind of peeking out of just a little hole in a piece of wood, and we were able to finally find that fox just by sweeping the area and listening for that harmonic. Same here. Like I said, the micro fox is a little bit different kind of tactic if you're working in say a park area or something like that. The cool thing about them is because they only, since they only do like the 15 milliwatts or so of power, they you can put them into an area less size of a city block, and people will you'll still spend a half hour or so trying to find this thing. So you don't have to drive around all over the place. They can be hidden just about anywhere, and just listening, just kind of finding that low power signal is always kind of a thrill. This one put us on a really good chase. I was able to get it sniff down to just about to where this stairway and this deck was. Um, in fact, if you kind of see there's a garbage can. I was even digging through the garbage can, wondering, thought it was in there at one point, until I found it underneath the steps in a Ziploc baggie. So it's uh, still a lot of fun. That's why I almost prefer the microfoxes, just because of you got that small area which everybody can search around in. So, and that's pretty much it of the formal part of my presentation. I got a couple resources here. There's a website called homingin.com, and that's produced by an individual by the name of Joel Mell. And many years ago, he wrote a book on fox hunting, and I think he's been active in the radio sport arena, or he was in the past. So he's just kind of like the fox hunting guru, and it's just there's a wealth of information on that website if you really want to get into the nuts and bolts of it. Um, Bionics, they're the company that makes the Fox controllers, the micro foxes, the controllers that you can plug into a handheld radio, things like that. And then finally, the ARL does have a really nice page with a lot of links and resources, QST articles on direction finding. So that will give you sort of more avenues of information besides what I've kind of said tonight. So, all right. I'm just gonna.
All
I'll
right,
just.
let's open it up for questions here,
Yep,
if you don't
I'm
mind.
gonna. I'm gonna drop the screen here, and hopefully we come back to things. So,
I
okay.
can, I can tell you some little idiocies that I've been through. I've actually fox hunted. We were trying to find somebody that was forming a repeater
Oh
and
yeah.
for chunking it and driving around. And it took us almost a year. And then he tried to not deny he was doing it. And the way we found him was the third harmonic. We saw him drive by, and he just about pegged the third harmonic. We knew it was him.
Mm-hmm.
He had his antenna laying down in his car.
We had an individual like that for months and months. He was just causing trouble. Yeah, malicious interference, kerchunking, just repeated DTMF tones to try to figure out the control sequences for the repeater, and we finally got to it where there was an opportunity. We kind of we knew who we had an idea of who the person was, but we needed something a little more conclusive in order to get like FCC action on it. And this was back in the day of official observers and Riley Hollingsworth and things like that.
Yeah.
So what they would actually do something about it. And it came up to about the end of October, and our club was going to do its annual Halloween patrol, where they just kind of eyes and ears watching the trick or treaters. So we knew that he was going to go crazy on that. So we had a team in the background just DFing the whole time. And it was too much of a temptation for him to leave that Halloween net alone, and we had him tracked down, and he was mobile at the time, and actually, no lie, we found him. He finally, he was all over town, but we were able to track him down. Evidently, he had enough, and he had to take a break at the local strip club. So that's where we that's where we
Well,
traced his signal down to.
give it strip club's a bad name.
Oh, I tell you, he got a nasty gram from the feds on that. So that
I
was
mean, I've done, like I said, I've done fox hunting. I think some of the weirdest stories I've ever heard was this guy had he was really one of these guys that was just an ingenuitive as hell.
Hmm.
He parked on a side of a bridge so he could run down under the bridge, put his car up on a jack, took the tire off, and the fox was in the car. So when people drove by, they, well, that's a broke down car. That can't be it. And he was hiding under the bridge the whole time.
We had a guy do that once. Yeah, sit under a bridge, but I think he was also beaming the signal to reflect off of a building too. So just to kind of diffuse it at the same time. And I remember conversations where the hunters would go over this bridge like 5 or 6 times. I can't, it's get strong, get weak, get strong, get weak, and just back and forth over the bridge. And sitting there underneath the whole time. So.
Now, I think the biggest idea for this group that we want to do it for is if we ever get called out to actually do something.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of reasons around here that we could get called out and asked to do something. And I know other groups in our area have actually had that happen. Anybody got any questions? No? Keith? You usually
Well, I've been quiet, yes.
you're usually one to
Hi,
pipe
Mike.
in.
I was involved with Civil Air Patrol a while ago, so this is nothing new to me. We used to go out and hide them, the ELT, practice ELT. One
Hmm.
guy put it in a culvert underneath the bridge. The bridge, it was an overpass, so there's both ways you would get it, but you had to be in the right spot to get that reflection out of the culvert.
Oh, sure. Oh, wow.
It was a little tricky.
So you're gonna be the one that's my nemesis.
You start sharing all these secrets, and now people are going to think about,
I've
low
got
spots, culverts, and garbage cans, and.
we've got plenty more.
Senator County once. I remember that. Remember when you wanted to go to Red Robin?
Yeah, we went. I told everybody to head south. That the more they headed south towards the border of the county, the better they'd hear me. And we were over at this Red Robin. It's about
In North Kansas.
10 miles into North Kansas from the Summit County border. And the reason I did that is I wanted to go there to eat that night. I wasn't the first one with that idea. We had a guy by the name of Dave that if he ever fox hunted, you could look, if you got a direction on him, you could look at a phone book and find out where he was at. It was that, yeah, because all you'd have to do is drive around to the local restaurants and you'd find him.
You find them. It's great.
Mall. By that one
Yeah, there
place.
was he hid by a mall, this mall we had over here in Akron. That was hard to find him, man. He was parked in a bunch of cars, and we'd drive up and down the road. And finally, and he was in a car nobody knew.
Oh,
So we could go on here. But anyway, I want to thank you for taking
you
the time
bet.
to come with us tonight.
Yes, thank you very much.
Hey, it's a pleasure. I'm just glad I was able to tune in this evening and, be a part of your meeting.
I'm glad you could make it.
Mhm.
Anybody else? No questions?
So,
Steve, you look puzzled.
no, I was just wondering, so is it, the third harmonic is better than even the attenuator as far as you're concerned? You think?
The I think that the third harmonic is going to give you 40 to 60 dB of attenuation, and it it can, some of the attenuators can get up to 80 dB or so. So you might get a greater level with the with the attenuator. I think where third harmonic, I found where the third harmonic comes in really handy is that you've already maxed out your attenuator and you need to go more. So I'll I'll open up the attenuator again, go to the third harmonic, and then start drilling down from there. So um, and that's if you're working, sometimes if you're working with a higher powered Fox, or if you're really close in and you just can't find it or something like that, and you're maxed out on the attenuation, then the third harmonic with additional attenuation is where you need to go. With the microfoxes, typically, a lot of times you could get by with even just the third harmonic without the attenuator, because that's usually enough to give you enough deflection to find the thing.
George, you have some?
The map and compass actually kind of intrigues me. So
Mhm.
I've never done this before, so I'll just come out and ask. So when you get your signal strength and you plot a course, a bearing, take a bearing like you did with a map and compass,
Hmm.
and then you offset how many degrees you said, 15 degrees or so. You take another one. Are you? How accurate is that when you triangulate that way with just map and compass?
It depends on how good how good you are with finding that sweet spot with the Yagi, but it gets you down into the neck of the woods. Within about I found that in most cases within a couple city blocks. So it can, if there's not something else that's kind of um, you know obfuscating the Fox, it you can, and then you can get two really good headings on it. You can actually get you really quite close to where you need to be.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Anybody else? See anybody have, nobody's hands? Yeah, I guess not. Thank you
All
again,
right.
Mike. Well,
Hey,
nice
it's a pleasure.
presentation.
Well, hopefully we can meet up soon. So when next time I'm down in Ohio, I'll have to give you a shout. So.
I thought, it'd be great to meet you,
Hmm.
and we're not that far away. Do you do
No.
anything in Ohio?
Usually it's just the only thing drives me down there is for the last few years has been Hamvention.
Yeah,
But you never know if we're traveling or something like that. So
we're not. We're about what 3 hours from Xenia,
okay,
and we're always, always looking for guests. Welcome to
yeah.
come see us if you want to.
Oh, you bet. Yeah. I can't remember you must so you said you're over in the Cleveland area then, or well you
We're
must
actually we're actually in Akron. Our
Akron. Okay.
call sign is listed in Talmadge, but it's actually in Akron.
Yeah. Okay. That's the DX connection then. I gotcha.
Just 5 minutes away.
There you go.
And and DX is the place, no matter who's sitting behind me.
I like their stuff. They got a lot of great things. So
If you ever decide you're coming down to DX, let us know.
I will do
We'll go,
that.
we'll go have dinner or something. In my tree.
Ooh, I'll join you.
Oh, listen to these guys. They're drooling already. Anyway, I
All
will
right.
let you go, sir. Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Okay.
Mike.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. So you guys have a great rest of your evening.
7-3.
Yep,
Seven
7-3.